How you folks doing? This is 2 Cents with Jay Richardson, and this episode is going to be a little bit different. Just kind of venting right now and discussing different aspects of sports that I think people sometimes see but don't actually realize why things happen or why certain moves are made and how athletes feel. And myself being a former athlete, a little bit about myself. I was drafted to the Oakland Raiders 2007, first pick of the 5th round. Was fortunate enough coming out of Ohio State playing defensive end to be able to make that team as a rookie. Almost killed myself in training camp trying to run into people to be able to make that team, but I did. And started 14 games as a rookie and was able to play 4 seasons out there. Season with the Seahawks after that, brief stint with the Jets, and then a full season with the New Orleans Saints in 2013-14, and wrapped up my career. Had a fantastic time. Had a great experience. Learned a lot about the business. Learned a lot about the ins and outs of different systems and why certain systems work and why certain cultures and certain franchises work and why others don't, regardless of talent. And it's no different than a Fortune 500 company, right? Whether you're the CEO of a corporation or you're the GM of a team, culture will always beat talent. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses and franchises don't always realize, or maybe they realize but don't always believe in that concept. And what I mean when I say that is, when you look at, and me and my man K-Dot right here, Chris Dash, we were just discussing what we think are the 2 best coaches of all time. And in basketball, I'm going to say, everyone's going to say, well, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, all of these different guys just because of the wins or the championships. But I'm going to say Greg Popovich for a very, very simple reason. His culture always won out over more talented teams. I'm going to say in football, Bill Belichick for one simple reason. His culture always won out over more talented teams. What do I mean by that? It's easy to say Phil Jackson, but when you look at Phil Jackson's coaching career, obviously the championships are there. Obviously the wins are there. But there's also 2 mega superstars on every team he's ever coached, whether it be Michael and Scotty or whether it be Kobe and Shaq. You're talking about that he, at any given point in his coaching career, had 2 of the top 5 players in the league, arguably, and I don't think anyone would dispute that. I don't know how much credit you get for being, if we're not going to give Eric Spoelstra credit for his 2 rings with LeBron and D-Wade, then how much credit, or why are we giving so much credit to coaches who also played with superstars? Whereas when you look at Greg Popovich, and Tim Duncan to me is a superstar, maybe a quiet superstar like a Kawhi, but a superstar. But that's not why they won championships. Tim Duncan's a huge part of it. He's a Hall of Famer. Why they won championships was the culture they built. When you build your franchise and when you build your teams, not just around chemistry and talent, but when you build it around setting a culture in the building that starts from the top down, from the ownership all the way down to the last guy on the roster. Bill Belichick is firm on this. I've been in workouts for the Patriots, been called by Bill and asked to come in and had a chance to see some of their culture, and it's so evident right away why certain franchises do well and others don't. Every single person in that building in the New England Patriots is held to a certain standard, which is why you can bring guys from other teams who weren't, doing great or who maybe didn't seem like they would mix chemistry-wise, right? I.e. Randy Moss, a guy who was widely looked at as super talented. He's a Hall of Fame wide receiver, one of my favorites, man. But when it comes to chemistry or locker room or whatever, even though I've never heard a bad thing said from another guy about Randy Moss as a man or as a teammate, he was just looked at somebody that, he might take some snaps off in practice. He might do his own thing, as most superstars do, but he had his own kind of personal culture. When he joined the New England Patriots, he was assimilated into that culture, and he was an absolute monster. His numbers went up. Everything went up. Yeah, you were playing with Tom Brady, but it was because you were a part of the culture. He wasn't going to act up. He wasn't going to take plays off because that was what the culture was set. And why was it set? It was set because when everyone's held accountable, everyone feels the need to be accountable, meaning if you watch clips of Bill Belichick in practice yelling at Tom Brady, a lot of things people don't see. If you're going to yell at I don't know, what is he, a 6-time Super Bowl? I don't even know how many times he won Super Bowl MVPs. The guy is, the greatest quarterback and might go down as one of the greatest athletes in the history of sports. And yet in year 17, he's getting yelled at by his head coach for a bad read or for an audible, to a hot read that probably wasn't there, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The whole team sees it, and they go, oh, crap, man, if he'll yell at Tom like that, we all better be on our you-know-what. Why? Because it's a culture. If Greg Popovich will chew out Tim Duncan in practice in year 15 of his career, 17 of his career, everyone else has to go hard. Why? Because the culture is set. That is exactly, to me, why, the Miami Heat lost to the Spurs in LeBron's last season with the Miami Heat. Why? Because the Spurs are going to die for those loose balls, man. The Spurs are going to pass and get the open man. The Spurs aren't going to take a bad shot. The Spurs aren't going to not box out on a long rebound. The Spurs aren't, going to take a practice off or take a shoot-around off. There is no Hollywood in those guys. There is no superstar in those guys. Every single one of those guys is a mini Popovich in a way. And because they've built the culture that way, it will always beat a more talented team like the Miami Heat. Why? Guys are on the same page, and no one's going to let the guy next to him down, and no one is going to be the one to be the reason that they didn't win, and no one's going to be the one to be the reason that the culture wasn't followed. And I think a lot of prominent, business executives can learn from this. When you're building any kind of a team, if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get people underneath you to help boost the entire brand of your business, you got to set a culture. You got to hold yourself to the same standard. You're going to hold the least important person. And then you got to realize there is no least important person. Everyone is important. I don't care if your job is to bring coffee to everybody in the group. You got to make sure that's the best coffee and every order is right. And if your job is to set the schedule for the team, you got to make sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted. Why? It's about the culture more than it is how talented you are. And I think in sports, it's critical. In business, it's critical. In life, it's critical. So I'm just wanted to go on a little quick rant about culture versus talent. It will always beat it. It's no different than that old quote, hard work always beats talent when talent don't work hard. Now, in talking about cultures and talking about sports, when we talk about this upcoming season and, the NBA and how cool it's going to be to see all of this talent spread around, it's never a surprise to me that at the end of the season, there's always a handful of teams that are always in the mix who always have the best culture. And it used to always be the Spurs because of the culture they set. The first time I saw the Spurs make a cultural error, meaning this is not par for the course for what we're used to seeing from the Spurs, was the Kawhi Leonard thigh injury gaffe that they had, right? When they really botched that Kawhi Leonard deal that led to him going, obviously, to Toronto, and now he's a champion there, and the Spurs look really bad, and no one talks about just how bad that made Popovich and the Spurs look. I don't want to get on Pop because I think he's like my favorite coach of all time. But you got to understand this. How many of you guys grew up, and you had a mom or parents in your house who always taught you, no matter what happens, you protect the family? Meaning, even if you got a beef with your brother or sister or your cousin or whoever's living with you, or you're even one of your parents, you don't take it outside the house. You keep in-house things in-house. That's always been the rule, right? Like, I might beat up my little brother or talk bad about him to his face or call him something, jokingly, but I'm not gonna let anyone else talk bad about my little brother. Either one of my little brothers. I'm not going to let anybody talk bad about them publicly because that's just how it is. That's family. I'm going to protect them first. No matter what issue I might have with them or a cousin or anybody, no one else can talk bad about them. It's no different than a franchise, right? It's no different on a team. A team and a franchise becomes like a family. And everyone in that building, everyone who has a biometric thumbprint to get in the building, who has a key card or whatever, is a part of the family. And once you're in, you are protected by the family. And the one big mistake the Spurs organization made was they did not protect the family. When Kawhi says he's hurt and you don't believe he's hurt, or your doctors have cleared him, then your doctors have cleared him. But one thing you do not do, even if you believe he's faking the injury, which I don't believe he was, but even if you did believe that, why would you tell the media he's cleared to play? Why would you tell the media we haven't seen any reason why he shouldn't play? Why would you tell the media that? Why would you do that? Why would you betray the man's trust like that and make him feel ostracized and make him feel like you don't have his back? That is a cultural mistake, and that cost San Antonio big time. It cost you a superstar, and it cost you Danny Green, because Danny Green's loyalty, turns out, was more to Kawhi than it was to that franchise. And I think, we get back to loyalty and brands. I know the last podcast I talked a little bit about how sometimes it kind of irks me that fans are more loyal to brands i.e. ownership, than they are to the working man who is more like them, i.e. the athletes. And that's something that I want to kind of discuss for a quick moment. Here's the thing. These owners, right, they buy these franchises, or they build these franchises with, whatever money they got from their investments or their family or their inheritance or oil, or, every now and again you get an owner who's self-made, very rare, but those billionaires are always impressive to me, and I always tip my hat to those guys. End of the day, they build something and they do what they want with what they built, and I respect that. And I think they hire who they want, and you get a GM, and before you know it, teams make decisions, and sometimes players never get a say in it, and that's just the business, right? Contracts are contracts until they're not. In the NFL, you can sign a contract that's worth 4 years, and in the last year of your contract, you can be due to make, a huge increase in your money, right? You made $2 million your first 2 years. Your third year, you made $4 million, and then your fifth or your fourth year, you're scheduled to make $6.5 million. And the team might go, you know what? We don't want to pay you $6.5 million, even though we signed a contract saying we would. We don't want to do it, so we're going to cut you. Flat out, we're going to cut you or trade you. We're going to dishonor the contract because we decided the money is more important than the honor and the principle that we set with that contract. That happens every single season, every single day, every single week, right? That's a normal thing. And what happens? It's rare I hear the fans get mad at the owner or get mad at the GM or get mad at the team. No, they just kind of go, man, that's tough. That's too bad. We had to trade him. Oh, well, I love my team, right? Right. Okay, cool. And we all agree that's just business. Here's where I have an issue. Every now and again, an athlete gets an opportunity to make a decision, whether it be in free agency or whether it be requesting a trade or whether it be asking for a release. This happens all the time. They want something different. They've decided something else is better for me than the situation I'm in. And I don't want to be in the situation anymore. Same way the team decides sometimes we don't want to be in the situation anymore, and they release a guy or they trade a guy. And when the athlete does that, the fans jump all over him. Oh, he's disloyal. He's a me guy. He just wants the money. He doesn't care about the team. How could he do this? I never get that. I never understand that. Hey, fans, where is that loyalty when it's the owner or the GM doing that to a player? They never think about that. And here's what I want fans to understand, and not just fans, but anyone who enjoys sports and enjoys watching someone, work for a living on TV, because that's all that these guys are doing, right? They're all paid workers. People always think because an athlete's a millionaire or a 100,000-aire that they're any different than them. They're a working man and woman, just like the working man and woman who works, for Walmart, or who works for the Smith Brothers, or who works at Abbott Labs, or who works at any of these buildings. Or it doesn't matter. They're all just working people. We're all blue collar because none of us are billionaires. LeBron might be at some point, but until that happens, no athlete's a billionaire. These guys are all hard-working stiffs and Joes, just like you out there. And to see fans be more loyal to an institution or to a team or to a billionaire than they are to the guy that's more like them than they are like the billionaire always baffles me, and it's always a little upsetting. And I want people to come away with thinking about this. Whenever you see an athlete get a chance to make a decision, whether it be LeBron and his decision back in the day when he went to Miami, or whether it be KD and him deciding to leave Golden State, or him deciding even to join Golden State, which I'll admit that was a bit much. I won't get into that. Maybe another podcast. But point is, it's cool to see a guy take his destiny into his own hands. We all read these stories about, and even movies about people taking their destiny into their own hands and making decisions for themselves and going and chasing a goal or a dream, and everyone feels inspired. Yet when it's an athlete and it's your team and he wants to leave your team because there's somewhere else he wants to go, we jump all over him. I never understand that. It makes no sense to me. The bottom line is this. Athletes are more like you than they are like the owners. So instead of us being loyal to brands and being loyal to logos and being loyal to billionaires, why don't we be loyal to each other? Why don't we be loyal to the working man and woman out there who's just trying to do what's best to feed their family? Because that's all it comes down to, and that's all any of us want to do. That is your 2 cents. Just venting a little bit with Jay Richardson. Have a good one.